Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the mid-tier list for patch 9.2. So if you haven't checked it out yet, be sure to check out my patch notes video as well and my support tier list. A lot of stuff changed at the beginning of the season. A lot of people are still getting used to the new rank, so be sure to check all that out, get up to date. And as usual, I'm going to do the format I have been doing for the tier list video. I think a lot of people like that, where instead of covering like top 15 for all roles, which is really hard to do because there are a bunch of different sort of difficulty levels, I'm going to be looking at an iron to silver bracket, and then a gold to platinum / like maybe low diamond bracket, and then an organized play bracket, which could be thought of as pro play, could be thought of as challenger, could be thought of also if you're playing in like a semi-competitive league with some of your friends, just when you have a larger level of organization and practice behind you, which kinds of champions could be better. Okay, but let's go ahead and get in here. Remember, if you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe. It does help other people find it. And be sure to check out the rest of the content on the channel as well. Patch notes, other tier lists, guides, coaching sessions. I stream every night starting around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to check all that out. Got a ton of content for you. Okay, so I think Malzahar is going to be the best, definitely, in iron and silver. I just played a lot of him tonight. I guess I played about 3 games on viewers' nights, as I'm recording this like really late Sunday or early Monday, depending on how you want to look at it. But I think that Malzahar has gotten a lot stronger for a few different reasons. First of all, let's go in here and look at Malzahar and see the kinds of stuff that make him strong in general. So Malzahar has always been really good at fairly low elo. It's just, does he do enough damage to really work to hard carry in a sense? And I think that he's getting back to that level because a lot of other damage has been nerfed over time. A lot of wave clear has been nerfed on a lot of champions, and that's opening up space for him to enter back into the meta. Also, people are moving towards AP now a lot more than AD, so you've seen repeated nerfs to things like Irelia, Aatrox, Urgot. A lot of these kind of like bruisery AD champions that were invading the mid lane are shuffling their way out. They're not very good at all in solo queue, particularly at lower brackets. You might still see some of them in pro play, but a lot of that has kind of shuffled out. You're seeing a little bit less of some of the assassins too, like the Zeds and the Talons. They're still around, but people are moving back towards these kind of control mages a lot more. Like, you're seeing some Lissandras, Cassiopeias, Zoe's, just a lot more mages heading back into the middle. Malzahar is very good into those for a few reasons. The number one reason is that they really, really hate to buy a Quicksilver Sash. If you're playing something like Ahri, it is super bad if you have to buy a Quicksilver Sash to deal with Malzahar. The AD champions, they could at least turn that into something later on, like Mercurial Scimitar or whatever, like late game. But on everyone else, on AP champions, it's just a dead item. Right, and that's going to delay their power spike. A lot of mages really have to get, items to do a lot of damage. AD champions usually have really high sort of base damages, and some of their abilities even scale off of total attack damage, although a lot of the assassins, it is bonus attack damage. Either way, they can usually creep, and sneak in a Quicksilver Sash somewhere in there. But these control mages, if they have to slow down and spend 1,300 gold for that, it's going to put them really, really far behind. So that's number one, is that the biggest counter to him is an item rather than a champion, and it's something that a lot of people just do not want to buy on mages most of the time, because Zhonya's won't help you with it. That's what, like, a lot of mages will typically get Zhonya's against, one-shot things that could potentially kill them, and they'll just try to outplay it. But Malzahar is a point click, so, you're not really outplaying that. Also, he has exceptionally good wave clear, and it's very important right now in this meta to have good wave clear, because a lot of other champions just aren't running it. If you look at a lot of the bot laners, like Vayne's super popular right now, Ezreal's super popular. Lucian does have some wave clear, but they nerfed the wave clear on his ult last season, and he's banned all the time anyways. And so you're just not seeing the wave clear that maybe you have in the past, right? You're not seeing the Hurricane champions like the Jinx, and like Twitch and stuff like that. You're just not seeing them as much for the wave clear. Sivir does get played sometimes, but AD carry's not helping you out with wave clear. Jungler, not really running wave clear most of the time. Top laners aren't really running a lot of wave clear. You're seeing a lot of melee tops. It's very rare that you see, and a lot of them rely heavily on Tiamat for their wave clear, and that's not going to help you a lot of times. When you're getting pushed into your tower, when you're trying to get priority to go make a play, it's okay. but, you know, you're just not seeing the huge wave clear type of champs that we've seen in the past. And wave clear is very, very important in solo queue. It's important in pro play as well, but I think a lot of people don't understand why it's important in solo queue. I talk about this a lot in numerous videos, so I'd say be sure to check out my recent How to Escape Each Elo guide, but one thing that you need to start picking up on, even as you move into bronze and definitely into silver, is how important wave clear and lane priority is. You have to be able to push in the wave before you go do anything. A few just TLDR reasons for that is, number one, it's going to give you vision of the person, right? So if you push in mid lane into their tower, they're going to have to catch that farm. You're going to see them, okay? So you know where they are. It's like having an extra ward. Number two, they have to make a choice. Are they going to follow you for whatever you're about to go do, whether it's ward the enemy jungler, rotate bottom, try to do a dragon, clear a ward with clear like a bush with a control ward, whatever it is? They have to choose. Do they want to stop you from doing that, or do they want the CS? Most of the time, they have to take the CS, which means you're going to get a free, 10-second head start down to bot lane, or you're going to get a free 10-second head start on the dragon. You're going to have a huge priority advantage. So when you hear people say priority, that's what they mean. If they choose to follow you, then they're going to lose CS at the tower. So it's a lose-lose. Basically, you're going to be able to do whatever play you want to do, and they're probably going to be too late to it, or they're going to have to give up CS and experience under the tower. Also, it puts chip damage on the tower. As you push them into tower more and more, it's going to continually do that damage, and then you're going to be able to get some plates in there. It stops them from roaming as well, or it makes them pay a heavy price. So if they roam on you, for example, if they back and then they try to roam bottom, and you see that, if you can push in a tower really quickly, you might be able to get a plate. So even if they do get a kill bot lane, which would suck, the most they're going to get is probably 300 gold. They might get some shutdown gold, but in general, they'll get like 300 gold. You're going to get a plate mid lane if you push really quickly, so that's 160 for you, and you're going to deny at least one wave of experience. So they're going to lose experience, and they're going to lose that gold. So they're going to lose, somewhere around 100 gold. You're going to get 160 from plates, and if you have a lot of wave clear like Malzahar, you might even be able to put an additional wave into their tower. And so you're going to get a lot of damage on the tower. You're going to get at least a plate. You're going to deny a wave of experience. And that's just about as good as getting that kill, right? Like, that kill is going to give an assist, and it's going to tilt the bot lane. So that's definitely a thing. But wave clear lets that happen. It allows you to punish and in some ways even get a better payout. If the gank fails bottom, right? Let's say that everybody survives. You still get the plate. You still get to deny all that stuff. So they're the ones taking the risk, not you, if you have good wave clear. So it's super, super important. So you always want to wave clear before you do anything, before you roam, before you go get dragon, before you go get baron, whatever it is, you want to wave clear. And Malzahar is one of the best in the business. Now, one of the reasons for that is he has his malefic visions bounces around from minion to minion, right? And so it's like just whatever the cost is on it. Like at level 3, it's going to be 80 mana, right? When you're level 5, you have 3 points in. It's going to be 80 mana. Then you can drop that Void Swarm, which is only 40 mana, and it's just going to clean up an entire wave, right? You can even throw your Q on there for extra AoE if you want, but you're just going to power clear that thing. And don't forget, this gives a lot of mana if you manage it right on the wave, right? So you're going to be getting 12% of your maximum mana right if they die while Malefic Visions is there, right? So, kind of in the mid game, when you have 1,000 mana, it might cost you, whatever, 90 mana to cast Malefic Visions. You're going to return 12%. You got 1,000 mana. You're going to get 120 back. So you're actually gaining mana off of your Malefic Visions a lot of the time. So it's basically free. So you can just do this over and over and over again, push, and then go figure out what you want to do on the map. That's a very powerful interaction. Other things that are really nice with him that go along with pushing is his Void Swarm tanks tower shots. So you can cast one of these things. It'll tank 2 tower shots, or it can actually do damage to the tower. There are some things that won't damage towers, like Zyra's plants. The Void Swarm does. And so when you get decent damage in there, this thing will hit for an okay amount on the tower, right? At least another auto attack or so worth. If you have 100, AP, and it's, around level 9 or so, this thing's going to be hitting for like 60 on the tower, which is pretty good. Don't forget, this also does magic damage. So when you get magic pin, when you get your sorcerer boots and your oblivion orb, this actually gets that 30 pin on the tower. Magic pin does apply to towers. So really, really handy. Great for taking towers. It does apply Rylai's as well. So if you get a Rylai's, you can drop the Void Swarm if someone's chasing you, and those minions will hit them and slow them down. So that's another little trick that you can do. Hey, thanks for the sub, Anders. It can attack dragons. It can attack barons. It can tank dragon hits. It can tank baron hits. So there's all sorts of little things these minions can do. It can hit skill shots, or it can block skill shots, right? So if you drop this Void Swarm down and Blitz tries to hook you, it could hook one of these things, or Thresh could hook one, or Pike, or whatever. Or maybe they're trying to throw, I don't know, just some menacing skill shot at you, whatever it is that can hit minions, and it will hit this. So I know all of these things because I played Malzahar support a lot when Malzahar support was a real big thing back in early 2017. I was one of the first adopters of that. Shout out to Fi. He did have a really good call on that one. Philol, you know, I kind of poke a little fun at him sometimes because he has to come up with content every day, and he just comes up with the wackiest stuff to try to get views, but this was one that was actually really good back in the day. So I learned a lot of these kind of ins and outs with Malzahar. He has a lot of utility for those reasons, with the tower taking, the wave clear, ability to block skill shots. He has a free Banshee's Veil, basically, that comes up every 30 seconds, so he's just really, really hard to get a hold of with skill shots a lot of the time, unless they break it. So he's just a nightmare for something like an Annie or an Ashe or a Thresh or a Blitz or just anyone to engage on that can't first break his shield. So that's all good. And his damage can potentially be kind of high, right? So total damage on somebody doesn't look like a lot, 220 on this, right? But don't forget, you can refresh this. So if you throw this on somebody and they're trying to run away, you know, it stays on them for a couple of seconds, and then you hit them with your Q, the Q actually refreshes it. That's something that a lot of people forget. It's refreshed by, where does it say that? During this time, blah, 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 dealing magic damage, damaging the target. With Call of the Void or Nether Grasp refreshes it. So you can actually get 6 seconds out of this if it just lasts for a couple of seconds and you hit them with one more Q. You know, you do an extra 50% damage. So now it's getting up to a 1.2 ratio with, you know, like over 300 base damage. It's very high. Your ultimate also refreshes it. And your ult does a lot of damage. It doesn't look like a lot, like it's only 125, but it's, you know, 10% of your maximum health, 10% of their maximum health as well. Even if they only have 1,000 health, that's still 225, and it's got a 0.8 ratio on it. And don't forget that your minions, your Malefic Visions is going to be ticking on them, and your minions are going to be beating them down. So he does a lot of damage with this kind of stuff. And it's a point-click ultimate. There just aren't many abilities like this in the game anymore. A point-click lockdown CC. This is a dream for a jungler. If jungler wants to kill your mid laner, all you do is you just flash in Malefic Visions, cast your Void Swarm, and then Nether Grasp them. And you can do that really quickly in like 0.25 seconds or something. So like this cast animation is instant, but it takes a little while to come out. It's like got a slight delay on it after 0.15. But, you know, if you put the Malefic Visions and then start this, after you start the animation for this, then you can use your ult and grab it anyway. So don't ever just ult without having Malefic Visions and Void Swarm out if you can at all help it. But yeah, that just point click. It's virtually guaranteed kills, and you cannot cleanse this. You have to have a Quicksilver Sash. That's the only thing in the game that'll remove this, except for like random things like a GP Orange or something like that. Now, you can be CC'd out of it, so that's something to keep in mind. So you want to be careful that you don't do this like on the 80 carry when Thresh is sitting right in front of you. But other than that, he's just very strong. He has excellent scaling on his abilities, a 0.8 here, a 0.8 here. He has really, really good synergy with Liandry's, which is very strong. They buffed it a few patches ago. Anything that does damage over time or has pets is great with Liandry's. He's great with it. He's great with Rylai's, which also got buffed about 5 patches ago or so. Because your Void Swarm applies it. Your Void Swarm also applies Liandry's. It benefits from Spell Pen. That's all good. So he's super, super strong right now. And he has great matchups against a lot of the other mid laners, most notably Ahri, who is the number 2, that's also very strong. So it's fantastic. Don't forget, this also has 900 range on it. And it does a lot of damage later on. When you get a lot of Spell Pen and you have your Liandry's and all that kind of crap, this thing can hit for like 500 damage. Like I've seen it chunk somebody to half, and it's up every 6 seconds with 900 range. So it's really, really good range on this. And it silences people for up to 2 seconds. So not only does he have a lockdown hard CC, but he also has a silence, an AoE silence in there too. So a lot of utility, very unique and cool kit. Great champ. So I have his rating as, I forgot to mention the 1 to 5 rating for each champion, and you can find these little mini Google Docs that I have under each champion as well. So you just go into the Google Doc, which will be in the description of this video, scroll down, you can click on the mini Google Docs if you'd like, and then I have a quick little like cheat sheet for you. If you're just like in champion select and you're like, boom, what should I do? It can give you this. So lane pressure, I have 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the champion is one of the worst at the role at whatever that task is. 5 is the champion is one of the best at whatever that task is. Lane pressure is 5, and this is mostly think about it as priority. How likely can you push and do whatever you want in the lane? I think he's one of the best. I mean, it's just really hard to fight back when he has the malefic visions on the wave, and then those minions are just eating the wave, and then he can Q and push it even faster. You can't even get up close because there's a chance the malefic visions could jump onto you. And if it jumps onto you, then all those minions are going to go for you. So some champions can be okay versus him if they have a way to clear those minions. But remember, the minions are basically free, and they're up every 8 seconds. It's like only like 40 mana to spawn them. So you're not really gaining huge advantages. And I don't think they're worth that much. They might be worth like 1 gold or something if you kill them. 2 gold if you kill them. So you're not really getting that much. Maybe someone like TF gets a little bit of extra bonus if you kill him, because he gets extra gold whenever you kill anything. But usually they're very hard to deal with. So great pressure, kill threat's really high, especially when you get to 6. You know, like I said, if the jungler just shows up and you just, you know, flash EW ult really quickly, they're dead. Even at, like, if you're afraid they might flash after you, then at least get the E on them, you know. Or you could even spawn your minions early, just go ahead and spawn the W and then flash over there and then E ult. If you think they might be, you're not going to have time to cast it, but either way, super easy to kill if you have a jungler, especially a jungler with any kind of CC. They're going to die. Safety, he doesn't have, like, any dashes or flashes to get away, but he does have that shield, which helps you out a lot. He does have minions, which can block skill shots. So he's fairly... And you can play really far back in the lane and just auto-push him in. So I think he's one of the safer champs, but he's not as safe as something like an Ahri or a Cassio in post 6. Scaling, he scales really well. It's either a 4 or a 5. Like I said, he does a ton of damage. Anything with pets is usually going to scale pretty well because that adds extra multipliers on how much damage you do. And reliability, he's one of the easiest mid laners to play. Super reliable. Yeah, there is some play to his kit, you know. You got to manage the malefic visions on the wave so it doesn't peter out early on. It can make it difficult to last hit. You do have to hit your Call of the Void sometimes, you know. You have to cast your spells before you press R. But let's be honest, this guy is super easy to play compared to a lot of mid laners, and that means it's reliable. You can't screw it up. You just power farm all game, and if anyone steps too close or your flash is up, just they're dead. So super, super good, super reliable, very difficult to mess up. Very strong champion. So yeah, Malzahar, I highly recommend him. Now, the runes that I recommend are going to be a little bit different from what most people recommend on him. A lot of people are getting Ahri. Now, Ahri, I just don't think it does enough damage to matter, is my thing. So if you look at kind of Malzahar here on u.gg, like Ahri does 10 to 40 base damage. And the thing is, you're not going to be doing this a lot in the laning phase. You're not going to be hitting them with a lot of stuff. You're just going to be clearing that wave. They're dumb enough to stand close enough to Malefic Visions. You know, you might get a little bit of damage on them. But you're not going to be walking up casting Malefic Visions on the enemy. You're just going to run out of mana if you do that. You have to cast it on the wave most of the time. And you're just power farming to 6. So you're really not getting a huge advantage early. It does do some damage later, and because he is an AoE champion, or like a dot champion, I should say, kind of like Teemo, and there's a couple other champs like that, where Ahri can usually double proc on somebody. That is good. So, you know, you could get somewhere near, but it's only got a 0.1 on the offense. So, you know, you could get in the mid-game like an extra maybe 60 or 70 damage on somebody off of Ahri, but that's all it does. Just a little bit of extra damage. You have Mana Flow Band. It's okay. I don't think... Yeah, I opted not to go Mana Flow. The thing is, like, your mana's really good with Malefic Visions if you use it correctly. Like I said, you're actually gaining mana in the mid-game, and especially once you get Lost Chapter, you're just never going to run out of mana most of the time, unless you're just, like, spamming all of your spells on every single wave. So I don't think Mana Flow is necessary. Transcendence is nice. Like, CDR is very good on him. Scorch, once again, not going to matter that much, though, right? Because you're not going to be harassing a ton in the laning phase. You're just going to get beaten up by the enemy. You're trying not to fight them until you get to 6 a lot of the time, unless they're just being ridiculous. and really far out of position, in which case you're probably going to beat him anyways. Water walking would be worth considering because I do think that his strong ability to push and get priority lends itself to roaming. So that's okay, but I just think this is really anemic compared to other possibilities out there. So what I recommend is Predator on him. Now, there's a couple reasons that I like Predator. Number one, it's great for roaming. So whenever you push in, you can roam up and down the lane, either top or bottom. Yes, it will let them know when you're coming up close, but if you pop this thing when you're already behind them, it's unlikely they're going to get out, especially if you have your ult. And it also gives you a nice chunk of damage. This is going to give you more than Ahri in an all-in. So, you know, it's probably going to do, I don't know, between 100 to 150 extra damage whenever you hit somebody. And it's on a fairly low cooldown, right? I mean, you can get it to 150 to 100. So I really like this. Another reason that I like this is it allows you just to rotate around the map. It's fast, right? You get a ton of extra movement speed, 67 movement speed. So in a Clown Fiesta type of meta like we're in right now, it's like, you know, okay, people are in trouble top lane. If I can show up there, I could turn the fight around. You can just rotate up there and do that. Or, oh, the team fight's done. I want to go push a side lane really quick. Go ahead and activate Predator, run over to a side lane. You know, get some more pressure in there so that you can back and then maybe bait Baron. Just basically having Ghost. For the most part, it's not fully Ghost. It's not as fast as Ghost, but it sure feels like it. 67% for 15 seconds. 15 seconds. I guess it's 67% for 1.5 seconds, but 45% for 15 seconds. How fast is Ghost? Summoner spell. I haven't used Ghost in so long. I don't play champs that get it, so I'm not 100%. Cooldown 180 seconds. Grants a maximum of 28 to 45% and accelerating. So you can't do Predator in combat. You can do Ghost in combat, so that's the thing. It does speed up to an amount, but it's basically 45% move speed for 10 seconds, right? If you just want to think about that, just like running around the map, just rotating somewhere using Ghost, not in combat, it's basically Ghost. So you get a third summoner spell that also does a little bit of extra burst damage. I mean, it's not quite as much as something like Electrocute. Actually, it kind of is. I mean, Electrocute is on a shorter cooldown, but if we're looking here, this is 30 to 180 with 25% bonus. Predator is 60 to 180 with a 25% bonus. So it's basically Electrocute. So it's like Ghost plus Electrocute for all ends. I mean, it's strong as hell. Like, it's really, really good. And it's on a 150 to a 100 cooldown, static cooldown. And that can be affected by things like Ingenious Hunter, by things like Cosmic Insight. So it's really, really good. And it lasts 15 seconds instead of 10 seconds. You can get across almost the whole map. So a really good back early on. You know, sometimes it's awkward if you can't get your full lost chapter. Usually you want it, but if you can't get it, you know, then you can get boots early and then just activate that Predator and run back to lane if you don't want to use your teleport. So sometimes I use it just to run back to lane. But it's great for rotations. It's great after you clean up a team fight just to go, like, push a wave really quick before you back just to get priority. It's pretty good burst damage. It allows you to run people down so that you can land your ultimate on somebody. Taking damage does not slow it down. I'm pretty sure, right? Move, channeling, 50% cooldown. Yeah, you have to do a damaging attack. So if they damage you, it doesn't knock you out of it. You can still run up to them and ult them. So I'm a huge fan of Predator on him. I was skeptical at first, but after trying it, I really like it a lot. Taste of Blood is great. Gives you extra sustain in lane. You know, you're not going to be hitting the enemy a lot, but you can definitely hit them with a Q every now and then if you need to heal up a little bit. It's got 900 range. It's longer than most of the poke you're going to see out there. You've got Eyeball Collection for a little bit of scaling. I think that's probably the best one. Ghost Poro, maybe, you know, but it's not that great. It's okay. If you think they're not going to sweep it away, it's all right. And then Ravenous Hunter. Now, this is the big technology that I think a lot of people haven't caught on to yet with Malzahar. Keep in mind that I know his Malefic Visions is considered single target. And I'm pretty sure that the minions are considered single target. I'd have to double check how pets interact with that, because healing is reduced by 1/3 on area of effect attacks. But basically your 1E is going to clear a whole wave most of the time. It's going to do the vast majority of damage to a wave. So if you think about how much HP a wave has, right? Let me see here. We can actually look at this. Look up League minions here. I know it scales over time a little bit, but like melee minions, let's just call it 500, right? Caster minions, let's just call it 300 for easy math. So if you have 3 of these, that's 1,500. You have 3 of the other ones for 300. That's 2,400. Just round it off, make it a nice number, 2,500 health. Let's say that even if your E only does half of the damage to the wave, which it's going to do way more than that once you get it leveled up. Even if it only does half damage to the wave, that's going to be 1,250, right? And if you look at something like calculator, let's just say 1,250 early on, and you get times 0.015, 1.5% early, that's 19 HP. That's 19 HP off of a wave that you're getting. Now, that may not sound like much. And remember, this is really early in the game. I mean, this stuff scales up. So it's going to have, you know, way more than that. Like, well, not way more, but a decent chunk more later on. But remember that as you get kills and assists, Ravenous Hunter can go up to 14%. So this is just with when you have no kills or assists. It's 19 per 30, right? Divided by 30 gives us this times 5. That's 3 HP per 5 that you get early on. That's a lot. That's so crazy. So over the course of a laning phase, even if you're only getting that, like 18 every wave, you know, there's going to be 2 waves. That's not even including when a siege minion comes rolling up, which is going to have way more, right? It's going to have like, you know, 900, which is going to give you even more. This is just not even including siege, whatever. You're going to get like 36, at least 36 HP per minute. And so over the course of like 3 minutes or so, you're going to have like an extra 200 HP, right? An effective health off of this. And it's virtually guaranteed. You just E the wave, and it does all of this. So that's just insane to have an extra 3 HP per 5 early on, starting at level 1 and going up to, you know, even if you just get a couple of kills off a Ravenous Hunter, right? Like, let's say that you just kill, you know, the mid laner and maybe you make a roam and kill the bot laner or the jungler or whatever at some point, right? Then it's 6.5. So if it's only killing half of the wave, 0.065. That's 81 health at every minion wave. That's just if you just have barely any assists and assuming that your E is only doing half of the damage to the minions, which once again, it's going to do way more than that. It's 81 health every single wave. Like, it's insane healing. It's actually crazy healing because all of it's single target for the most part. And it replenishes all of your mana. And you get extra healing if it passes off to somebody else with Taste of Blood. So this rune right here is just insane. It makes it so difficult to trade with him. Even if you poke him a little bit, he's got the shield to block some poke. And now he's just going to heal up, you know, a stupid amount every single wave. Even if he has no assists or no kills on it. So I think that he's really sleeper. I don't see a lot of people going this build with him. You know, if you kind of go the standard Ahri build, you miss out on Ravenous Hunter, but I think that's a serious technology that people are going to figure out about. You should, at a bare minimum, go that secondary if you want to go this. Now, the other thing that's really good here, and this is just super stupid not to go Materializer, you absolutely want Minion Dematerializer because that's going to make your E, you know, do that much more damage to the wave, and you're all about pushing. So I would go Materializer and Cosmic Insight with this, and then obviously you don't want to get the delayed boots if you have Predator because you want to get those brown boots as soon as possible, even if you're only going to Predator to run back to lane because it's going to get you back there a lot faster. So I like this build a lot. I think it's really amazing. Like some of these games that I played earlier today, like I was literally up. Now, yes, I was playing against probably gold or silver people. But still, like I was up like 100 CS in some of these games earlier today. Let me pull this up here. I haven't even played Malzahar in a long time. I don't even play mid that much. I've just recently started playing it as my off role, so I get it like 3 times a week or something when I play support. But like, look at some of these games are just so ridiculous. Like, not even the kills, like the CS. 447 CS in this game. Now, that was a super long game, but like, let's see if I can pull this one up. What, 447 CS to 212. Like, some of these, I'm literally up, like, I was up 200 CS that game. This game down here, this little blue game here, 218 CS to 113. I'm up 100 CS on this guy. Like, I'm routinely up, like, ridiculous amounts of CS on these people. So, yeah. Now, once again, you know, that's basically smurfing on Members Night. But I'm just saying, you get a lot of CS with this guy. It's really easy to do. And, you know, he can put out a ton of damage as well. So, I would definitely give Malzahar a try. I think he's very reliable. You just want to go Ludens, especially Lost Chapter, as fast as you can get it. And then just Sorcerer Boots. If you're not super rich, you can go Oblivion Orb for the double pin, which is really, really good for that mid-game. But if you are super rich, if you can go ahead and afford like a Haunting Eyes and a Blasting Wand on some of these backs, then you can just go ahead and skip the Oblivion Orb and just go straight into Leontries plus Rylai's. It's super, super strong. So, yeah, I think Malzahar is amazing. I would definitely recommend him. I would not be surprised, honestly, if they nerf a couple more of these mid laners to see him pro play. I mean, don't forget, this is what Crown played, I think, to win the 2016 Worlds against SKT Faker. The only time that SKT has ever lost in the World Finals, he played Malzahar every single game. So this is not just something for, like, bronze noobs. Like, you know, this is a really good champion, even at the highest level of play. If he's not played, he's, like, on the cusp. I'll guarantee you there are pro players that are practicing him constantly just to think about it. So, yeah, and he's a very good safe blind pick, too. So, definitely at lower elos, I think he's going to be great. And even at higher elos, I think he can be okay. Okay, let's talk about Ahri here. Now, Ahri is someone that doesn't get a lot of respect, doesn't get a lot of spotlights on tier lists and things like that. She just gets the job done. I mean, she just wins. If you look at Ahri, she almost always is one of the highest win rate champions. So, if you look here, win rate, boom, right there. Now, all of these guys, these are just boutique champions, right, that have like less than 4% played, but Ahri has a 10% play rate. She's one of the most picked champions. She's the 3rd most picked champion, and she has whatever that was, like the 5th highest win rate in the mid lane. So, it's super, super powerful. So, and this is at Platinum. Like, if you go down, let's see, let's go down into like Silver here. So I don't say just look at stats and pick whatever's the highest stats. I'm going to explain it logically too, but it is helpful to kind of take a look at some of these things as well. So she's 53% down here and 10% play rate. So very similar, even higher win rate, similar play rate. The only thing that's a little bit higher that's also picked a lot are Veigar and Lux. Okay, but she's still going to be in there, still has a high representation. And high win rate. She's actually the 3rd most picked. And what was it? Yeah. Of the ones that are picked a lot and win a lot, she has the best combination of those two. So why is this? What is it about Ahri that makes her so good? Well, similar to Malzahar, she's very reliable. Reliability is your friend. Like, if you play something that's relatively easy to play and you can get a lot of wins on it, that doesn't mean that you're a noob or that you're bad. It just means that you care about winning and you're smart. Okay? Now, there's something to be said for fun, you know, for playing Yasuo or playing, you know, Zed or Azir or whatever. And you know what? Whatever floats your boat is fine. But as far as overall strength, reliability is a huge deal because it's not going to help you out a lot if you go 15-0 one game and 0-15 the next game. You know, it's going to be a real feels bad. So, you know, you do you. If you want to play like really dangerous champions, that's fine. But if you're really like truly serious about climbing, reliability should be some factor on your radar that you're paying attention to. Malzahar, very reliable. Ahri, similar. Why is that? Let's take a look. Number 1, this right here, Spirit Rush. Okay, it's on a... They have nerfed this cooldown. It used to be like a 100-second cooldown or something back in the day. But it's still extremely good. This is 3 flashes, basically. And you can spread them out within 10 seconds. So it's sort of similar to why I like Rakan a lot, is that you can go in, try to make your play. You know, you can dash forward with Spirit Rush, charm somebody. If you mess up, you can get back out most of the time if they don't hard CC you. So you just Spirit Rush forward, try to hit your charm. If you hit it, they're probably dead. You miss it, okay, whatever. You can Spirit Rush back out. So that's the beauty of her. Or, you know, someone's trying to, like, flash and run away from you. You're going to run them down, as Ahri most of the time. So she has lots of, and she can juke stuff. You know, anyone that has skill shots, right? Like Thresh has a skill shot. He's trying to walk up and hook you. You juke to the side, charm him, blow him up, and then just reposition however you want. So mobility is supremely powerful in League of Legends, and she's one of the most mobile champions whenever she has this up. It's very helpful. Similarly to Malzahar and that insane healing that I was talking about off of Ravenous, she has really high healing too off the wave. So she can use this Q. It's a fairly low mana cost. Has nice wave clear. It doesn't have diminished damage when it hits extra minions, and that's important to note because a lot of champions in mid lane, like Talia, Zoe, a lot of champions, Lulu, when she used to get played middle, a lot of champions have this clause when they have an AoE wave clear ability that says any damage beyond the first champion or beyond the first minion or whatever does reduce damage. So like Talia, it's like everything beyond the first target does 50% damage or whatever. Ahri doesn't have that. She does full damage to everything that goes through. And it does not only magic damage, it does true damage on the way back. So an easy way to think about true damage is double damage. It's not exactly mathematically correct all the time, but it's very powerful. And if you think about it that way, that'll get you to respect its power. So instead of doing, 280 damage, just think that it's doing an extra 140 damage here, right? So it's doing like 400 damage, right? Like 420 damage roughly, because the back half is true damage. So that's a lot of damage, and that's a lot of wave clear over time for a pretty low cost. And it heals her. So once you reach 9 charges, so you can gain up to 3 charges per ability cast. So basically, the 4th time you cast one of these, your next orb is going to heal you for 6 of these, right? And so at level 6 or whatever, it's going to be 5 a pop. So that's going to be 30 plus 9, it's like 64%, 54% plus 30. So if you have 100 AP, it's going to be somewhere around like 100 health. So that's pretty good. Pretty good. And then whenever she hits people with 2 abilities, so if she hits them with her charm plus her Q, she gains an extra 20% movement speed for 3 seconds. So once again, lots of mobility in addition to her ult. And then Foxfire is just, if you hit somebody with your charm, it's all going to hit them. It's all going to do extra damage. And if you hit the charm, you do 20% extra damage to them. So whatever these numbers are, it's 20% more. So basically how she works, pretty good wave clear with her Q. Not as good as someone like Malzahar or like Anivia or something, but still really good. Requires a bit more AP. But still going to be very strong. Good wave clear. Good ganks. You can jump over walls and surprise people and just hit them with charms, blow them up. You can evade ganks really well. Good all in. This is a really surprisingly good CC. 1.4 seconds is an eternity. This is a major buff they gave Ahri back in the day that went under the radar for a lot of people, but it used to be only 1 second per point in charm. And then they upgraded it to 1.4 seconds, which is a huge deal. So now you only have to put 1 point in charm, and you can put more points in Foxfire, which means overall you're going to be doing a lot more damage. Because you don't get the cooldown doesn't go down. The damage is very minuscule. The CC, it goes up a little bit, but not that much. So I'm pretty sure most people max Foxfire after charm. So pretty good all-in champion. Her damage numbers are not going to be as eye-popping. She's not going to 1v5 as much as a lot of other champions out there, but she can get picks in the late game. This is a really long range, 975. So you can get picks, you can assassinate people, you can dodge, you do pretty good sustained damage, you have pretty good wave clear. She's just sort of a jack of all trades. It's a very safe champion. Just be careful picking her into something like Malzahar or Lissandra, because both of those can lock her down and kill her. So her mobility is not going to mean a lot there. Also, Veigar is pretty scary for Ahri. If he puts you in that cage, you're not going to be able... It's going to be harder to dodge what he's doing. So just keep that in mind. So as far as Ahri goes, I would run... Electrocute, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, Ravenous Hunter, so you gain even more just, Your Q does count as AoE, though, so you're only going to get a third of the healing, but it's still worth it. It's still fantastic. And then just Transcendence and Gathering Storm at the end. And then just double pin. That's basically going to be it on everybody. You're going to end up going Sorcerer Boots, Luden's Echo, and Oblivion Orb. Pretty much on almost every single champion. They did just nerf Oblivion Orb. It cost 100 more gold and lost 5 AP. But the penetration is still worth it. It's just an extremely strong item to get that dual pin, mathematically how that works. I do have an AP itemization video on the channel, so be sure to check that out if you want to know more about it. But they didn't change the penetration on it, so I think it's still worth. You don't want to complete Morello unless you really have to get it now, because you are losing 10 AP on Morello, which feels real bad. So you can just stop at Oblivion Orb and then just move on to another item, I think is what most people are doing, unless you really, really need that healing debuff. So, yep, Ahri, jack of all trades, very consistent, very strong. Veigar is another one that I want to mention here. Now, he is kind of the low elo special. He can work at higher elos too, but one of the main reasons that he's so good at low elo is just a lot of people don't respect the range of that cage. If you put someone in that cage, like, they're probably going to die a lot of times, and it's hard to dance around like the W in the cage. And his numbers are just like, y'all know Veigar. You've probably played against him. They're eye-popping numbers. You know, he gets to a point where he can almost just one-shot somebody with his ult, right? He doesn't even have to hit him with other stuff. And this is a very, very good team fighting tool. You know, when you cage somebody and you're stunning people for like 2 seconds or something in the mid-game, you know, it just wins team fights. So not only is it very good at, you know, caging individuals and stopping mobility, which is what everybody's running, you know, it'll stop almost everything except for, like, Ezreal. You know, it keeps Vayne in there. It keeps Lucian in there. Just really, really good for catching people out. So, and then you can also farm pretty easily. Early on in the game, people won't contest you as much at silver and lower. They'll let you sit there and just farm this off of minions. You can harass people with it. Super cheap, super easy. It's only 40 mana to start with. And basically, every time you farm a minion or every time you hit an enemy with this, it's like you gain 20 gold. If you want to think of it like that, 21.75 gold, because you're getting 1 AP, and that's what the value of AP is. So, you know, it's like you have a kleptomancy on crack with this guy whenever you hit people with the Q. So, does a ton of damage. If you, like, prep the minions correctly as well, you can get 2 stacks off of minions. That's a little trickier to do. You have to practice it a little bit, and, like, your opponent has to let you set it up and do it that way. But every now and then, you can even get 2 stacks off of somebody. So, yeah, good stun. Good sort of scaling over time with this. Decent harass early on. Very good wave clear with your W. You know, you can just one-shot the back line really early in the game. You can one-shot the front line, too, with just a couple of items. So, Dark Matter, very good. Based on your phenomenal evil stacks, you get CDR on this, too. So, if you get to, you know, 100 phenomenal evil stacks, then you basically get 2 seconds off of this. So, you know, and in, like, the super late game, if you get, I don't know, 400 phenomenal evil stacks, like 400 extra AP, then it goes down to a 3-second cooldown. So, that's pretty nutty. And then, of course, your ult allows you to one-shot. Now, he can't roam as well as some other champions. So that's worth considering, but he is very good at one-shotting. He is very good at team fighting. I have thought about taking something like Predator on him, honestly, because if you can run up and get that cage on people, you can just go the Predator, Ravenous Hunter. You could even go, like, Ulti Hunter, maybe. Your ult's not that long of a cooldown. I think Ravenous Hunter could be good. That'll let you heal up in lane. You can also go Taste of Blood. So, you got some options out there. Most people are still going to go for Comet, Mana Flow, Transcendence, Gathering Storm. Gathering Storm is good because a lot of times you want to get Death Cap with him. So you get extra benefit there. And then having the Minion Dematerializer helps you out a ton. Having Footwear is good. Comet is nice. Like, if you cage somebody, Comet does help apply sort of your all-in. If you look at Comet here, you know, but the Comet damage is only going to be 300 to 100. And you're only going to get it once in an all-in. You know, you don't have stuff that slows people. You know, like, if you hit someone with Q in the laning phase, you might hit them with some Comets, maybe. but usually Comet's better on champions that can slow people down or that have something that lowers the cooldown on Comet. You know, like they have plants or like their Cassiopeia and they have like area of effect damage. They have stuff they can spam. Veigar really doesn't have that. It's basically just going to be most of the time you just all in somebody and you're going to hit them with one Comet. And if that's the case, you know, once again, Predator is going to do more damage. It's going to allow you to rotate faster. So once you get that wave clear, you can rotate. It's going to help you get in close enough so you can cage them. It's going to help you get back to lane early on. So I think Predator might be another thing for solo queue that could be really good as well. So just the standard Predator, Taste of Blood, Ravenous Hunter build. If you do that, I really don't think you need mana flow that much, honestly. Like, it seemed like it's good, but if you're going to get Ludens anyways, usually you don't have a lot of mana problems. So you could go Mana Flow Transcendence as a secondary, or you could just go something like Materialize or Cosmic Insight as a secondary. So I think there are a couple of options there. I'd have to try it out and see, but I think Predator could be something that could be useful as well. Just because, once again, Comet is like, it just feels like people just do that because they don't know what else to do. But it just doesn't make a lot of sense with this kit. And if you want all in, I mean, even something like Electrocute would do more damage. But standard Sork Boots, Oblivion Orb, Ludens, Death Cap. So, very good. Just remember, if you put your cage up on Malzahar, you have to crack his shield first, or he's going to be able to walk through it. Okay, Karthus. Now, Karthus has been all the hotness. In high elo, people are playing him a lot in the jungle, which is kind of weird. I'd have to watch some more videos to understand, like, what's up with that. He has very, very good wave clear, and he just power farms, I guess, and doesn't even have to gank. He can just press ult and kill people. And he's getting played in 80 carry some. I think most people are probably familiar with why Karthus is so good right now, but a lot of it has to do with his rune. So first of all, Dark Harvest is very nice on him. You can trigger it a lot across the map. It only triggers once per spell cast, so even if you proc it on multiple people, I think it only triggers once. It doesn't trigger off of Liandry's burn anymore, so you can't, like, chain, you know, Dark Harvest stacks on the same person anymore, which is good because that was really overpowered. But it's still going to be really good. And then you have Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, Ultimate Hunter. Now, the key runes here are Ultimate Hunter and Presence of Mind. Whenever you kill somebody or get assist with Presence of Mind, it reduces the cooldown of your ult by 10%. And so, if you're getting like 3 assists in a fight and Ultimate Hunter, whenever you get a killer and assist, then it lowers the cooldown up to a maximum of 15%. And I've done the math on it, you know, when you're level 11 and you have, like, I think it was something like 3 stacks of Ultimate Hunter and you're killing 2 people in team fights or whatever, and you have a Luden's Echo, then your ultimate's going to be on like a 90-second cooldown or something like that. So it's just super strong, super powerful. This is going to give him some decent sustain in lane with Taste of Blood, good scaling with Eyeball Collection. You're going to be getting a lot of kills and assists with that, so that's going to help out a ton. And then that's going to give you the Execute for Coup de Grace, and that Coup de Grace can also add an extra 7% damage to Dark Harvest. So very good interaction. He farms really well with his Q, Defile, his ultimate. So basically he's a power farmer, very similar to a lot of these other champions we've been talking about, but instead of actually running to those side lanes all the time, you can just press R and kill people. What you can do instead is power farm the enemy's jungle, or sometimes power farm your own jungler. If your jungler is spending all their time ganking or invading and taking the enemy jungle, you know, just go ahead and take those raptors, take those wolves, whatever they're not getting in a really timely fashion, just go ahead and grab it, you know. And you have to be careful with that, you know. You don't want to piss your jungler off. But, I mean, honestly, if they're just not clearing their jungle that fast, you might as well just take it. I mean, it's better if you can take enemy raptors, so push them in, ward it, and then go grab enemy raptors is even better, or like grab Scuttle or something like that. But you just power farm your way to 400 CS and you win. Pretty much, so grab your tractor, have at it. Very, very powerful champion, very consistent. You know, even if you get caught late game, even if you end up going 0-5 in the laning phase, if you can just farm, you're still relevant late game because you can always press R. And so there's other stuff to Karthus' kit. You have to hit the Qs if you're really trying to play him well, especially for harassment early on and last hitting. and all that stuff. So there is a little skill to that, but let's be real. Most of the time, if you can just find a way to get farm, you can just suicide in a lot of fights and just press R, which is like pretty frustrating, but that's how his whole kit works. Okay. So you just want to go Sork Boots, Ludens, Oblivion Orb, Death Cap, and Void Staff. Pretty good, consistent champ. All right, Vlad. Vlad is kind of the new hotness here. I'm not really sure why people weren't running him. Maybe there were certain champions that countered him more. But he's very, very strong right now. I'm seeing him. I banned him in a lot of my games right now. A lot of people have started running Phase Rush on him, which gives you more mobility around team fights. The major thing with Vlad is he has such great sustain early on. It's hard to poke him out of lane. And this thing right here, like his Empowered Crimson Rush, just does a ridiculous amount of damage and just heals for a ton. Heals for an additional like 5% of your missing health, you know, up to 10% of your missing health plus 100 to start with. If you're like 2,000 health, you know, you're going to be healing for like 300 or 400 a lot of times off your Empowered Q, and it goes down to a really short cooldown. So he just has, you know, really good sustain early. He can actually harass pretty well if they will let you walk up and Q them. He's very safe with his Sanguine Pool. He ends up getting pretty good AoE damage with his E, especially when it's empowered. Does a ton of damage, 6% of your max health. It's not unusual to have definitely over 2,000, bordering on 3,000 health with Vlad, because remember his AP gives him extra health also. So this is really closer to like 300 plus damage. Has a 0.8 ratio, so if you get up to like 300 damage as well, it's 240. I mean, I've been almost one-shotted by this as a support off of Vlad that has like 2 or 3 items. It just does a ludicrous amount of damage. It's on a short cooldown late game, and then the Hemo Plague, everybody on your team does an extra 10% damage, and you heal for a ridiculous amount. Vladimir's healed for every champion through that. So, you know, maximum heal, 210% AP plus 750. It's just crazy. So he's very difficult to kill. He has a ton of health. He's great against assassins. Pretty good poke in lane. He's a true like 1v5 type of champion late game. You don't want to do him 1v5, but, you know, metaphorically, he can definitely do that. Super strong. He is seeing some pro play. He even gets played in the bot lane sometimes. So once again, I'm not entirely sure why he was out of the meta for a little bit. Maybe there were certain champions that were really good against him. Maybe the meta was just a little too fast for him to scale up. Maybe people were getting the wrong items. But in general, he's super strong right now. So you just want to go double pin, Sork Boots, Oblivion Orb, not Luden's Echo, Proto Belt, and then Death Cap, and you can just, you know, figure it out from there. I think Zanya is maybe after Death Cap. The game's probably going to be over by then. Yeah, I think this is the technology as people are going Sork Boots, Proto Belt, Oblivion Orb, and then eventually the Death Cap. I think it's that Death Cap is really what's putting people over the edge, is people have decided they want to rush that much, much faster than they used to. And so you just go Phase Rush and then Nimbus Cloak. So this Nimbus Cloak gives you the initial speed whenever you press your ult to start a rotation. And then you can charge up your E, you know, and either flash on somebody, or you can charge up your E and pull. Don't forget that when you're pulling, if you're charging your E, then the pull, it can still go off while you're pulling. I don't believe you can Proto Belt while you pull. I think I've tried that before. I can't remember. Has no cast time, works instantly. So he can't use basic attacks or abilities, but if you're already charging your E, then it does work. So if you, that's a difference between like a good Vlad and like a not so good Vlad, is a lot of times you can fully charge your E and they're not going to be able to knock you out of it or stop you. So you can fully charge your E and then it can go off while you're in that pool and do a ton of damage that people may not be expecting. And it's hard to see the animation too for the charging of the E when he's pulled. So sometimes you can't tell if he starts the charge like almost at the same time that he pulls. It's hard to see that. Let's see. So you can get stunned or silenced or whatever, but you would still pull if you do it at the exact same time. You're still damaged by dots. I can't see if you can activate Proto Belt. I'm pretty sure you can't, but you can Proto Belt beforehand to get into people's face and do that extra bit of damage. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're going to fully rotate with Vlad in, you want to try to land a Q first before you start your rotation. So typically you would want to ult, land your Q, start charging up your E. If people are going to respond to you, then you can pull. If they're going to do a lot of stuff to you, your E will go off, you know, while you're pulled. And then as soon as you pop back up, your Q should be off cooldown by that point, and then you Q somebody for like a bazillion damage, and then your ult goes off after that. And it just pretty much one-shots people. If you need a little bit of extra time for your Q to come back off cooldown, you can Zhonya's Hourglass, Q again if you need to, and then start charging up and run again. So the phase rush is what helps you rotate around the fight. So after you do your full rotation and kill somebody, and Zhonya's if you need to, you should still have maybe a little bit of time to get out of there with your phase rush. It might not. It might be off cooldown by then, but yeah. So that's it. I mean, he's just super strong. Has really good scaling with the kinds of items people are getting these days. The double pin is very strong. The one thing he doesn't have is CC. So if you fall really far behind, he's not going to have as easy of a time getting back into the game as you might with Malzahar. Because with Malzahar, you always have your point-click ult, right? But with Vlad, that's a little bit less guaranteed. So Vlad is very, very strong. If you get now, some of the combos are weird, though. As I mentioned before, a lot of people won't prep their Q first before they go in, because you have to hit one Q first, and then it's that next Q. Or it might even be his third Q. Is it a third one? I think it's the third one, actually. So, like, you know, ideally, you know, you want to do your, like I said, Q first. You ult, Q, run in, start charging up your E. If you need to pull, you can. If you don't need to pull, you know, just let your E go off. Q again, and then you can Hourglass while you're waiting on that last tick of Q if you need to, and then you can Q again after that. So it takes like some awareness of that Q and like knowing just how much you're going to heal off of that, which is a ton. And like little combos, I'm not even aware of all of them, but like when to use your Proto Belt, how, like when you should pull, like how to charge your E while you're pulling. All of that takes a little bit of knowledge, so he's not like super easy to play, but it's just like weird little combos that he does. So your pull is also very good against things like Karthus ult, if you need that, for example, or just like really weird, you know, like Bard ult. Just anything that's gonna like potentially hit you like that, you can dodge with Sanguine Pool because he becomes untargetable. Okay. So yeah, just Phase Rush, Nimbus Cloak, Transcendence, Gathering Storm, and then Footwear, Cosmic Insight. So Vlad's super strong right now. If you're good on him, he could even potentially be the best. It's just he takes a little bit more, and he doesn't have as much reliability as Malzahar does, particularly kind of in the early to mid game. Okay, Gold Plus, and I don't want this video to take forever. There is a lot of overlap between these champions, so we'll just go on and talk about kind of the newer ones as we go. Malzahar, I still think, is going to be the best at Gold to Platinum. Vlad is another one that, like I said, is going to rise up quite a bit as people learn his combos a little bit more, learn how to abuse his power spikes a little bit more. The fact that he gets Proto Belt is also like super strong because that's way faster than most other people's item. So while other people are trying to complete their Morellonomicon, which kind of sucks, you can get an Oblivion Orb and then a Proto Belt on top of that, which is going to be much more high impact. And then we see Ahri's down a little bit lower just because there's going to be more counterplay to her. You're going to see more Lissandras. Stuff like Cassiopeia is pretty good into her with that miasma. It can really be difficult for you to get out of that. So let's go ahead and talk about Cassiopeia here really quickly. Now, Cassio can be good Iron to Silver. It's just she's one of the more mechanically challenging champions on the list. And so that's why I don't have her from Iron to Silver. But you can definitely win with her if you want to. And she is the only champion in the first, where's my list here? However many days in the last week or so of games played. She was literally banned. Not every single game, but like insanely close to every single game. She was banned in 98 of 105 games. And there's a reason for that. She is ridiculously strong right now. So unless you have a good counter pick for her, and there obviously are not that many floating around out there, then she's going to be a powerhouse. So what is it about Cassio? Why is she so strong? I get asked about this a lot on on stream, especially when I'm playing her. Well, what makes her so good? Why are people just now playing her a lot? Well, there are a couple of technologies. First of all, they nerfed her on this patch. It doesn't matter. They nerfed the stuff that like nobody cares about. Her like W damage and like the cooldown on her W, which is not the, I mean, it matters, but just not that much. That's not why she's strong. So why is she strong? Okay, well, there's a couple of things that people figured out. So previously with Cassiopeia, for the last couple of years, the common wisdom was you max E, so that you do more damage with your twin fangs as you go. It's super mana intensive, and so you have to get Tear of the Goddess and Rod of the Ages, and you need to be able to kite people better, so eventually you'll get Rylai's as well. Well, that leaves no room for spell penetration items, and she can't get spell pen boots either. And so in a meta that has been defined for the last 2 or 3 years by double pen, where whether it's Haunting Guy Sork boots or Oblivion Warp Sork boots, whatever it is, that's what people get because flat spell pen is overpowered. Hey, thanks for the sub, Thomas. I appreciate it. So that's been the deal, is that she just didn't really fit very well with a lot of the items that were going on, and people thought that she had to have just like an insane mana pool to make her work because her E cost so much mana. She was played sometimes, but only in like extreme circumstances where tanks were super overpowered and you needed a mage like Cassiopeia or like Azir that could do very heavy sustained damage to these tanks that were almost impossible to kill. Okay, so what changed about it? Well, and people used to get phase rush. Kind of in the newer generation in Season 8, people get phase rush because it's like, well, you need to be a lot faster. You can't get boots with phase rush that'll allow you to kite people, chase people down, do all the stuff you need because movement speed, very good on Cassiopeia. That's why she can't get boots, or that's part of it. It's because it could potentially be very overpowered with her kit. Okay, so what's this new technology? All right, well, number one, people figured out if you actually sit here and read Twin Fangs and do the math on it, you don't want to level this ability up, okay? And this is like one of the most counterintuitive, weird scaling abilities in the whole game. And they try it because before they changed it into this, you used to want to put more points in E, like old school, 3 or 4 years ago. She had she got a reworked kit. This is what you would do like way back in the day. But now, if you look at kind of her new age kit, her base damage is based on your level. So it doesn't matter how many points you have in Twin Fang. It's just strictly based on your level, okay? Then she has an AP ratio with that. Then she gets some bonus damage if you land your E. The only thing that you get by leveling this up is 20 extra bonus damage. That's it, right? The AP ratio is exactly the same whether you have 1 point in it or 5 points in it. The scaling based on level is exactly the same whether you have 1 point or 5 points in it. Right? Even the amount that you heal is based on level. So you're basically paying 10 mana for 20 damage. That is awful. Think about like other abilities that would be kind of like this. A normal ability that, a mage has might do 240 damage, right? But it might only cost like 80 mana to do that. This would be the equivalent of if that same ability costs like 120 mana in order to do 240 damage. Like, that's a terrible ratio. Why would you do that? Most abilities go up by like 40 or 50 every time you spend an additional 5 to 10 mana on something. So you really want an ability that ends up being like 3 to 4 times cost efficient. So something that costs like 80 and gives you like 240 damage. Just so happens Cassiopeia has an ability like that, right? So this ability, your Q, actually scales. You get an additional 45 damage every point that you put into this. The mana cost does go up by 10, but now you're getting 45 damage the whole time. And on top of that, you're getting extra bonus movement speed. A lot of bonus movement speed. So you're going from 30 to 50% bonus movement speed. So people started asking, why don't I just level up Q then? And so that's what people started doing. So when you level up Q, you get a free bonus 20% movement speed. So that means you don't need movement speed as much. So then all of a sudden, you don't have to get phase rush as much, or it's not as necessary to get phase rush. And people started going, Okay, well, now I have better wave clear off my Q. I have much more aggressive poke damage in lane off of my Q. I have this extra movement speed. Now I'm saving all of this mana too, because this you're only casting every 3.5 seconds if you want to. This is only 40 mana. So now it's a lot cheaper. You know, before you might cast this for, you know, if you didn't really level this up, you might cast this for 50 mana, but then spend like 3 Twin Fangs on somebody, and that would end up being 230 mana for the whole rotation. Now, you know, you might spend 70 on this, and then just cast a couple of Twin Fangs on them, and it's only 150 for that rotation. So that means you don't need mana as much. So now you don't need move speed as much. You don't need mana as much as you used to, because this doesn't cost as much. It's like basically half price of what you used to spend on it, 40 instead of 80. You're only losing a marginal amount of damage here. You're gaining back the damage here. So that means that you don't have to go tier anymore. Or if you do want to go tier, you don't have to go Rod. You only have to go 1 mana item now. So you can go Ludens, is what most people are doing. I still think that there is some validity to going tier. It does take a bit more to stack up, but at the same time, you get a big shield off of it, and you get more AP when you finally complete it. And it's super easy to complete that tier because you can last hit with your Q during the laning phase, and it refunds the mana. So that's very powerful interaction. So you can really charge that, you know, tier up. I haven't done the exact math on it, but you can probably charge that tier in like 10 minutes. So that's really easy. And then another technology that people figured out was, well, since we don't have to go phase rush, what if we go Comet on her? Yeah, here's the rune page. So a little thing about Comet is that you get extra cooldown on Comet whenever you have damage over time abilities, 5%. So whenever you poison somebody and it ticks, you know, 3 times, then it's going to be 5% damage off your poison. I think it checks every 1 second. It might be faster than that. Let me see. 3 seconds. Every second, yeah. And this also damages per second. So if they stayed in this for a second or two, that's lowering the cooldown a little bit. You know, over here, this is lowering the cooldown by a little bit. So that adds up quite a bit over time. So you get a 15% cooldown on Comet. Then if you spam Twin Fangs on people, then that lowers the cooldown even more. It's 20% per Twin Fang. So if you ult somebody, or not ult, but if you Q them, that's 15% cooldown off a Comet. Hit them with 2 Twin Fangs, that's an additional 40%. So that's 65% off the cooldown on Comet. So it's up all the time. You know, in team fights also, if anybody steps on these things, so if you throw a W in the middle of a team fight, I'm pretty sure area of effect is 10% per enemy hit. And so is damage over time. So if you throw that W down in a team fight, as far as your Comet goes, and you're like ticking it on 3 or 4 people, and you're like hitting multiple people with Qs and E's, you're basically going to be throwing out Comets like every 2 or 3 seconds or something for quite a bit of extra damage. So it's a very, very strong interaction with her. So that's really what it's been all about, is you max Q now. You're able to go a much more aggressive build, usually like Ludens, and then you can get Oblivion Orb, or you can just go straight into something like a Leandri's or a Rylai's. You don't have to go for the double scaling items, though. And so that's made her from sort of a scaling tank breaker into a lane bully, early game lane bully who still scales like a maniac. So that's really accelerated her power curve in the game. And that's what's up with Cassiopeia. And also, you know, you can go that standard Ravenous Hunter plus Taste of Blood, which has become the new hotness on most mid laners, and just sustain a ton. You know, you can go cheap shot if you want. I still think that Taste of Blood's probably better. Now, a lot of your abilities are going to be AoE, so you're only going to get a 3rd healing. But remember that you can do that Q to a minion as well, and you get a full mana refund on that if you Q the minion. And the Q is going to do single target damage. You're going to heal off of that. Don't forget with your Twin Fangs as well, this is something that a lot of people overlook. That's a lot of healing on this thing. So if you Q a minion wave, you Q that back line, and then every time you E one of these, you're going to heal. So if you're like level 6 and you have 100 AP, you're healing 20 every time you last hit one of those minions. So you're healing like 60 from the Twin Fangs on the wave, and then off of Ravenous Hunter, you're probably going to be healing for another 40 or 50 in the mid game. So every wave, just off of queuing and last hitting with your E, you're going to be healing for over 100 health. And so it just makes it really hard to poke her out with poke champions. And then in team fights, and definitely after you get stacks on Ravenous Hunter, 14% spell vamp on stuff, your E is going to be hitting people for like 300 apiece. You're going to be healing for like 60 per fang, in addition to, your Q damage healing you, and just everything else going on, and this thing healing you. Every fang that you hit on an empowered target, like let's say you're level 9, you have 200 AP, you're going to be healing for 33 in addition to whatever you're doing with Ravenous Hunter. So you're just healing like through the roof on everything all the time in a lot of these fights. So she has great sustain, she has great wave clear, excellent scaling, really good utility. It's so hard to dive her with that ult. Very good in team fights. The miasma is insanely good against mobile champs. It really shuts down Lucian, Vayne, anyone that tries to run through that. It just makes it almost impossible to like stop her from sieging you or to siege onto her. This has incredible zone clear off of that miasma. And that was one of the huge technologies too, is it's grounding. So you can't get through that, and it slows you by a ton. So unless you can like blink over it, it just causes a huge pain in the butt. And it lasts for a long time. It lasts for 5 seconds on the ground. If they wanted to nerf this, that's what they should have nerfed. It should only last like 2 or 3 seconds. But 5 seconds is like, it's so crazy. And if you get something like a Liandry's early on, if they step on that, you're doing double damage to them over time. And like your poison over time, like is going to apply Liandry's as well and keep it ticking. So just really, really gross interactions with a lot of super powerful items out there. Most notably, like I said, the Ludens and then the Liandry's and Rylai's package is just disgusting on her. So huge lane pressure. She can definitely push people in very easily early on. The kill threat is a little more sketchy. She's pretty unsafe early on. You can get movement speed off of your Q, but you have to land the Q. Your ult can save you sometimes, but she doesn't have boots, so she doesn't move very quickly typically unless you land the Q. And she doesn't have blinks. Scaling is one of the highest scaling champs in the game. She just devours Baron, dragons, tanks, you name it. If tanks come back into the meta and they don't nerf her again, she's definitely still going to be #1 by a very wide margin, especially at higher level play. Then reliability, she's one of the harder mid laners to play because you have to constantly hit your abilities to get your speed to survive, and you have to constantly reposition. She's almost like an 80 carry that plays in mid lane. In fact, she's one of the best 80 carries right now as well. Be sure to check out my 80 carry tier list for more on that. But yeah, super strong. So just Ludens, Oblivion Orb, Liandry's, Rylai's. Her one thing, though, in solo queue is she does not roam very well. Okay? So even if you are able to push people in, it can be difficult to get to those other lanes to make a big impact. So kind of like what we were talking about with, who was that? Karthus earlier, since he can't like run to the side lanes as fast, you might just want to consider power farming with her as well. So instead of trying to roam down to bottom, just wave clear middle as fast as possible. See if you can steal Raptor, Scuttle, make a Dragon Call, push in middle. You see the jungler top lane, your jungler's in bot river, push in middle, make a call to go get Dragon. That is something she does. Karthus does Dragons pretty fast too. She can take those things like that. So take advantage of that. Push, make those shot calls. But I think power farming is your best bet. And even if she does roll up to a lane, she can gank, she can throw down her miasma and stuff like that, but she's really better at sort of just pushing and pulling. She's like a pushing and kiting. She's like a piece of siege artillery a lot of times, She's just really slow, but really powerful. So yeah, very strong power farm champ. Lots of ability to pressure and outplay early, though. Unlike Karthus, she can kill you in lane, and this is why she's so good in pro play, is like, even at level 2, if they land a Q on you, and then they just run at you, and land like 3 E's, you have to leave the lane. Like, you're done. Like, it might cost them half of their mana bar, but who cares? All they need is just enough for Twin Fangs, and that can help them last hit. So I think that the Cassiopeia, especially if they're really good and they're very aggressive and they start with like a corrupting potion, can completely abuse people and just wear them out. Particularly, if you end up taking really good trades and you have Ravenous Hunter and Taste of Blood to heal you back up, And remember, your E heals you also. So if they're trying to like trade with you and you're sitting there spamming E's on them when they're poisoned, you're healing up a lot while you're doing that. So very, very strong. Very few weaknesses to her game, other than the fact that she doesn't have flashes or dashes, and she can get killed by assassins if they manage to get through her W, and if they manage to fake out her ultimate, which is a lot of ifs. Okay, Lissandra's one of the last ones here, and then that'll just about be it. We'll talk about maybe one or two more here at the very end. But Lissandra's becoming really popular too, and people figured out kind of a weird build with her in top lane during Worlds. This kind of came out, but you pretty much want to run Aftershock, Demolish, Bone Plating, Overgrowth, and then Mana Flow Ban and Transcendence. So why would you do this? Why is this so weird? Well, this allows you to initiate a lot safer without getting blown up and without having to build tank items. So, and it means you may not necessarily have to ult yourself either. Sometimes you might, but with Aftershock, sometimes you can get away, especially if you have Hourglass, you can actually get away with ulting somebody else for that 1.5 second stun. So if you look at Lissandra, she did get some buffs fairly recently. I think 3 or 4 patches ago. That made her way, way better at team fighting. So they did what I've been saying they should do with her for years, which is get rid of that stupid passive that she has, which was like, you gain some mana like every 15 seconds on your first spell you cast, something really generic. And they lowered her mana cost on most of her abilities to compensate for that. And now whenever you get a kill in a team fight, then she gets these little like time bombs that basically run around and can blow up on people and do pretty good damage, particularly if you have Spell Pin, which every mage is going to get Spell Pin, Sork Boots, Oblivion Orb. So that's really good. She has pretty decent wave clear with her Q. This can be kind of cost prohibitive rather early on. It does cost a lot. It's 60 mana for 70 damage. So that kind of sucks. And her damage is not that great for these all-ins. You know, it's only 190. It does have 0.7. It does apply a small slow. But it's just really not a very good rate. It's 72 mana for 190. It's not even a 3-to-1. And it's pretty short range, too. It's only 725 range. So you're going to get outranged and potentially, you know, beaten up by things like Cassiopeia. So that's kind of rough. But once you get your, if you get blue buff, and then she has pretty high base mana, I think. It's like 475. It's okay. Then you can wave clear some, but you typically don't get Eludens on her. So, you know, over a long period of time, for extended sort of laning phase, it can be hard to push. So someone like a Cassiopeia or a Malzahar can push into you, and you're going to run out of mana trying to wave clear because, you know, Cassiopeia is going to get mana refunds off of her E on the wave. Malzahar is going to get mana refund off of his Malefic Visions. So she can get pushed in, but she's very, very good at engaging, right? And so this Glacial Path allows you to get really close to people. It's up to 1,000 range engage. Then you have Ring of Frost for 450. So it's basically going to give you like 1,500 engage range on people. This is an AoE slow for up to 1.5 seconds. And then you get an additional Frozen Tomb, which will stun people for an extra 1.5 seconds. And so, you know, you can chain stun for about 2.5 seconds on people. Aftershock's going to keep you relatively safe, and then you have Ice Shard. And if you do manage to get a kill on somebody, it's really hard for the enemies to keep fighting because now you've got this Frozen Thrall, which is going to run around and do extra damage. And if you chain this together and kill multiple people, then there's multiple Thralls running around. So she's just a really good sort of snowball team fight champion. If you can pick one person off, not only are they dead, but you're starting to wake up this passive, which is very difficult to maneuver around because it not only does damage, but it slows people down. So makes her a really, really good team fighter who can engage by herself. And that's from a really long range, like 1,500 range. So, and she can ult herself. So if they try to focus you out, you can ult yourself, slow everybody down, heal yourself for a ton. And that's really powerful in a lot of situations. Right? Karthus ult's about to kill you. You can ult yourself. Dive in the middle of a huge bunch of assassins or something like that. You're afraid they're going to kill you. You can ult yourself. Then Hourglass after that. And so you can cause a lot of disruption on that back line. And people just freak out. Like, if you get into their back line and you, like, slow their AD carry, everyone tries to, like, run back and peel the AD carry. And then you're Hourglassing and they don't know what you're going to do. And then you can ult yourself or you could ult one of them. It just creates a lot of disruption on the back line. and confusion. And so that's why she's picked a lot in pro play. She's one of the most highly contested picks, I believe. Yeah, she's the one. She didn't get banned very much, but she got picked almost always, and she had a pretty good win rate, at least in the last however long, 7 days. Is this the same one, or is this a different one from what I had? I thought there was more than 105 games, so maybe I'm just seeing things. Anyways, so that can make her very good as a team fighter. Now, just keep in mind in solo queue, you're not going to have the damage most of the time to just one-shot people, and your wave clear is suspect, so it's not going to be as much damage as Malzahar. It's not going to be as much wave clear as Malzahar, and you can cleanse it. So if the enemy takes cleanse, then they can actually cleanse out of a Lissandra ult, and that's something pretty common that you take against Lissandra as cleanse. So there's going to be more counterplay to her than there is to Malzahar, but she has a much cleaner initiation, especially in team fights, than he does. So that's kind of the trade-off there, is that, yeah, 60% win rate. Now, that's not just the last week. That's the entire preseason, I think. But she's going to be very strong. So you typically want to go Sork Boots, Oblivion Orb, Proto Belt, Zhonya's. So pretty standard. You don't get a mana item with her, though, because you're mostly just going to be all in. If you get blue buff, you know, you can still wave clear pretty well. But the fact that you don't have something like Ludens, once again, is going to make it suspect for sustained wave clearing. Okay, so still a good champ. Just in organized play, she starts to get way better, but she starts to get doable in like gold and platinum, but just not going to have as much raw power, I think, to get away with it in this elo bracket, kind of the iron to silver. But if you're really good on her, you can make her work. Okay, finally, organized play. And I've had some people ask me, well, why do I have this like version? Why do I have this tab? Well, some people just like to see if I can call and figure out what's going to be right in pro play. Some people have fantasy leagues. Some people have semi-organized leagues. Like there's a lot of those popping up online where you can just get together with a group of friends and play in this like online league for prizes. There are lots of collegiate teams coming out. There are lots of high school teams even forming up. I would say almost every major university within the next 5 years is going to have some sort of esports, organization, and League of Legends, I believe, will still be the premier #1 esport in 5 years. I just don't see anything that's going to compete with it on a large level in terms of like real competition. Because it has such a strong infrastructure. Like it just constantly changes. I know people make fun of Riot's balance team, but they keep it fresh a lot of the times. I know that like people can say, oh, this meta gets stale or that meta gets stale, but compared to other games, think about other highly competitive games. I think Riot does an excellent job of keeping the game fresh, of keeping it interesting. There's so much commentary out there. There's a freaking college league circuit that's gaining a lot of traction. It's just huge. It's like they just have such an amazing infrastructure, and it's just sort of the organized play aspect of it is growing at such a large rate that I just don't think other esports are going to keep up with it for a while. But anyway, so Cassiopeia, talked about her. Pros and organized people are going to have really strong mechanics with her. They're going to be able to bully people out. She's just good in almost every situation. Lissandra, just talked about her. Excellent in team fights. Very rarely picked her banned, which is a huge thing. Slots into almost anything. She's going to be really strong. Vladimir, I think, is going to be a rising star. He didn't have a lot of presence in the last patch. But I think that people will consider running Vlad more if they have CC, out of the jungle or out of the top lane. If tanks start coming back, you might see Vlad coming into play a little bit more. And then kind of the newer ones here that I'll just go over really quickly are Galio. Now, Galio did get nerfed here on this last patch pretty hard. I think he had a really high win rate on the last patch as well. He was super overpowered in pro play if you've watched it. And a lot of that is because of his interaction with engaged champions. Like, it's just very good. If someone was playing, like, Rakan was the typical one. Rakan would ult in, and they nerfed Rakan too. But Rakan would ult in, then Galio would follow up. It looks like he was about 50-50 in the last week or so, just looking at that green-red bar. But, like, anyone that engages, you have Sejuani on your team, you have Camille on your team, like dunking somebody with Camille and then following up with Galio is a Korean combo special. Rakan can do it. There's just a lot of champions that combo so well together with him, and anything that gives you that kind of macro pressure where you can just kind of like be in one lane, split pushing, and then just show up in the other lane to a team fight without having to use a teleport is going to be ultra strong. He has really good wave clear. He's very tanky, very difficult to kill, does super high damage, has an AoE CC taunt, gets a shield in lane, so he takes trades really well, you know, can CC people with Justice Punch. Just the list goes on and on and on. His kit is just overloaded. He has way too much power. And for people that think that that nerf is going to throw him out of the meta, you need to take a peek at him again. In fact, let's go ahead and do that really quickly. I keep saying really quickly. It's going to be an hour-and-a-half video, but whatever. Just look at these numbers. These are post-nerf numbers, okay? So, like, Gust of Wind, for example, it does cost 120 mana, which is pretty eye-popping. You're like, oh my god, it's a lot of mana, right? Look at his other abilities, though. 50 mana, flat, at all ability ranks. 50 mana, flat, at all ability ranks. You know, this is 100 mana flat. So, yes, his Q is expensive, but his other stuff is, like, absurdly cheap. Now, you aren't spamming those other things like you're spamming your Q, but if you just get one mana item, Ludens, especially if you get a blue after that, you can still do a ton. And don't forget, a lot of this is AoE, too. So it can hit multiple targets, and it does full damage to minions. So kind of like what we were talking about with Malzahar, he does not have that clause, where if it hits multiple targets, it does less damage to subsequent targets, like they did to Talia, like they did with these other champs that had too much wave clear. So he still has a ridiculous amount of wave clear. It just costs a little bit more mana, but still good. 75% base, 210 damage. You might say, well, 210 is not that much. Don't forget, it's 2% max health per 0.5 seconds. This is not every second, it's 0.5 seconds. So they're going to stand in it. They're going to get the first tick, definitely. And a lot of times, you know, they're going to get a second tick. But even if it's just the first tick and the target has 1,000 health, that's still a 230 base with a 0.75 ratio that can hit multiple targets, that does full damage to minions. And, you know, realistically, it's going to be a lot of times 6% if they're caught up in the CC, and they're going to have like 2,000 health. So 6% is 120 plus this. So that would be a 330 base with a 0.75 and an extra 2% per 100 AP. You have 200 AP, you know, that's going to end up being 10% of their max health. So this is less than it used to be, for sure. This has been nerfed. It's still extremely powerful. And they didn't do anything to this, right? So he gets his free shield every now and then. It just takes 12 seconds of not fighting, and you're going to get a shield for like 50 in the laning phase. So it's going to be tough to trade with him. So that's like every wave he's going to have a free shield where he can walk up and trade with you, and if you trade back, if you're a magic user, he's not taking damage and you are. And then he gets like this crazy resistances, like flat damage reduction. He gets half of it on physical damage, but still, like 20% magic reduction in addition to having this shield if you just get 1 point in this. And I think the standard is just to get 1 point in this and then max your Justice Punch second. But it's really good. And it taunts, you know, for up to 1.5 seconds. CC on the taunts. You can charge this up and then flash in and like taunt their whole group if they don't run away immediately when you start charging this. And then Justice Punch. Still does okay damage. It does reduce damage to minions, but who cares? You're going to be one-shotting the minions anyways with your Winds of War pretty soon, probably off of one item. And this knocks people up for 0.5 seconds. It can hit multiple people. They made it faster so he can actually use it as an escape. And then finally, of course, you have your Hero's Entrance, which is basically like anyone dives into the enemy team, Rakan, Camille, Jarvan, whatever. You just press Hero's Entrance on them, and they're not going to get out of it if they're CC'd, especially if they don't have Flash up. So, his does a ton of damage. Look at the ratios on this thing, like a 0.9 on this. You know, a 0.75 on this thing. Like, his ratios are just insane. So, you're just going to get a ton of damage on him, like a lot of other champs. I don't think he can proto while he's charging this. I'm not 100% about that one. He can flash while he does it. Maybe he can proto while he does this. I'm not sure. But he just does a lot of damage. So he has great macro pressure, has great CC, great durability, like really high damage. It's just like, why does he have all of this? Why are his ratios higher than mages like Annie? Why does he do more damage than Annie? You know, like, that should be the gold standard. Like, super squishy mage with no escapes. Pretty much. That's, like, supposed to be all in. Yet he does more. Even though he does all this other stuff, too. And he has more range. And he's tankier. What? Like, what is that balance? Why? He shouldn't do that much. He should be a tank. Like, that's what he should be. And on top of that, because he has such high base damages, he can go Aftershock, because why not? You know, so if we look at Galio, he's going to run Aftershock, Shield Bash, which gives him some extra resistances early, because once again, his little shield comes up every 12 seconds, so it's pretty much always up. Bone Plating, Overgrowth for the extra health, Mana Flow Ban just to help you out a little bit with your mana issues, and then Transcendence. I think it'd be possible to just, if you wanted to go Ravenous Hunter plus whatever, you could. Now, he does kind of need that extra mana. So Mana Flow Bans is probably something that you need, but, you know, you could go a Ravenous build if you wanted to, although everything he has is AoE, so you're not going to get as much of a benefit off of that as someone like Cassiopeia or Malzahar, but still, like, it's just crazy. Like, Aftershock is going to make sure that you don't blow him up, you know, whenever he comes in and ult somebody. He's going to get his charge off. You can't even knock him out of this. Why? Like, when he drops in with his ult and then starts charging Shield of Duran, like, you can't even, like, Thresh flay him out of it or something. It's like he's going to stun your whole team. Most likely. Unless everybody flashes. And if that's the case, he's flashing after him. And he's still going to get him. So it's just silly. He just has such an overloaded kit, especially with Aftershock. You're never going to kill him. He has really high base stats. Like, he has 562 base health. Goes up to almost 2,500 base health on a mage. His mana regen is 9.3. Why is his mana regen higher than Orianna? Like, why is his base mana 500? Why does he have like 100 more base mana than someone like Orianna or Annie or just like all these other mages? Like, if we look at these base stats, like, Freak did a whole video on base stats recently where he was talking about like certain cases that are, I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard him talk about his base stats and a lot of other things. Just like, look at some of this stuff though. Like, she caps out at 2,000 health. She starts at 418 mana. She starts at 8 mana regen, 19 armor, 30 magic resist. What's her move speed? 335 move speed. Look at Galio, 562, 8 health regen. She has like 5.5. He has 100 more mana. He has more mana regen. She obviously has more range. He has more move speed. He has more armor by a lot. He has more magic resist, both base and scaling. He has more attack damage. So you might be saying, yeah, but Annie has 625 damage. Yeah, but he's going to one-shot Annie. Like, he does more damage than her abilities, too. Like, she has a 0.8 here with a 220 base. He has a 0.75 with a 210 base. Oh, and also, like, 6% of their, like, max health at 825 range. Her range is 625 on this. So, like, that's what I'm talking about, is it's like, he has everything. Like, his base stats are through the roof. He has tons of range and, like, heavy wave clear on his Winds of Magic. He has an ultimate that not only can save somebody across the map, but potentially can, like, CC an entire team and does pretty respectable damage with a high AP ratio on it. He has a Justice Punch, which does a lot of damage and can CC people. AoE Taunt that also gives him a shield for, like, a large percentage of his health. It's like, what doesn't he do? So, you know, yeah, they nerfed him, and for good reason. But the thing that I found funniest is they hot buffed him the next patch. They're just like, oh, Galio's win rate's a little too low. We need to give him back his damage on his Justice Punch. No, you don't. Just take it away. Like, yeah, there are lots of bad Galios, you know, out there. This happens with all sorts of, like, macro champions like Tom Kench as well. Is because this doesn't get used properly in solo queue. You know, you just ult, you know, you'll see somebody like ult someone in the bot lane who's running away, and then it gets completely wasted. Or, you know, they never flash taunt, or they just don't understand, like, the correct items to get, or, you know, they just constantly overextend and get caught in lane. So, yeah, there are ways that people can be bad on Galio, sure, and his win rate may not be, like, the highest in the game. But, you know, he's still going to be ultra strong, particularly in pro play. So if you're really good at him, you can definitely make him work. It's hard to do it in silver because, once again, people are just going to run away if you ult him. But a lot of times, but I think in, you know, gold and plat, he can still be super strong. And definitely in pro play, he's very strong. And the last one I wanted to mention is Zoe. People are probably familiar with Zoe. Won't spend a lot of time on her, but basically, I think she's back. She has pretty good matchups against a lot of these mid-range mages that aren't assassins. So, like your Cassiopeias, your Lissandras. They aren't going to pressure. Cassiopeia will pressure her hard, but she's going to be banned in pro play all the time. But like Lissandra and Galio and things like that will probably, for the most part, just farm it out with you in lane. Her wave clear is not as good, but you know, your ability to just one-shot people with that Q in the mid-game does make her very valuable. That bubble is a pretty good engage over time. You know, your ability to really maximize the free summoners and, like, item stuff that you get with her W can be really good. So I think that she's, you know, on her way back because there are less, like, hyper-aggression type of assassin champs. There's less, like, LeBlancs and things like that running around. Although LeBlanc is still, like, you know, has some presence there. But, yeah, it looks like she was kind of on the negative side this week, but with the nerfs to Galio, he's still really strong, but maybe that helps her out a little bit. You know, we'll see. But I think that she's someone that people are definitely starting to pay attention to a little bit more. Then finally, just the honorable mentions, and that's going to be it. You know, I get asked a lot, and I'm sure people ask about stuff like LeBlanc, Cassin, Katarina, Yasuo, Aurelion Sol. These are all like one-trick champs that can be very good in their own right. A lot of times they just lack, like, Aurelion Sol has good wave clear. Sol is very good. He's just kind of weird to play. He takes a lot of practice. But he does have really nice push and roam playstyle, but he just feels a lot less consistent a lot of times than some of these other champions. And some of, like, his runes, I think, aren't as impactful as some of the runes on other champions. So, like, he can do very well, but he takes a little bit of time to get going, too, because he has to charge up his rod. So he's okay. He could work. Yasuo, if you're just way better than the enemy mid laner, you know, you can make Yasuo work for now. We'll see in the next patch when they nerf Phantom Dancer if they go through with that, but he can be very good. Katarina, she can be strong. She can snowball. She's just very susceptible to CC. There's a lot of CC running around right now. So against something like Veigar, I think she's really good because I think she can blink over his wall. So pretty good into stuff like Veigar. Can be good into Ahri if you can dodge her charm. So she does have good matchups. Great into Karthus. Maybe if you get ahead of the Vlad, can be good into Vlad because he doesn't have CC to stop you. Could potentially be okay into Ahri if you, or into Cassiopeia rather, if you jump over her miasma. And if you know, dodge her ult. Like, it's possible. But I think that, you know, Malzahar and Lissandra particularly are really hard matchups for her because obviously they just ult and interrupt you and they can, like, push you in over and over again. Particularly Malzahar is a nightmare. But, you know, she can have good matchups. Galio is also a super tough matchup because he's going to have so much, like, base stats and so much damage and so much CC to shut you up. I'm not entirely sure about Vlad being a good matchup. I think that could potentially be problematic too. That's probably a skill matchup, but, you know, she can work. Kassadin can be very good. The reason I don't have Kassadin on here, you know, is basically everybody's a mage. There aren't any AD champions on here. He just takes time to scale up. I think most people are just going Rod and skipping the tier. But he does take a little bit of time, and he has no wave clear, so you can get pushed in and, you know, out-roamed early on, so that is rough. But if you survive the laning phase, especially if you can get a couple of kills, then he can, you know, completely delete some of these other champions out there. Once again, if you walk into a Malzahar or a Lissandra in a mid to late game team fight, though, they will kill you. So even though they may not be able to fully kill you by themselves, because you're going to have a lot of health, you're going to have your shield and your magic damage reduction, the rest of their team could potentially kill you. So it makes it very hard to engage against those types of champions. So, you know, that could work. Also, don't have things like Irelia or Aatrox or Urgot. You'll still see some of them in pro play for sure. But but they haven't been that successful recently. You know, if we're looking at Urgot, he has a very negative win rate. Aatrox is doing all right there. Scion has become kind of popular a little bit in the mid lane, but I think that some of these control mages are definitely coming back. I expect Rise to rise back up a little bit more, and I think Malzahar could creep back in here as well. He was only picked like once, but I think that's definitely a possibility. So those champs are still good. I just think they're better in the top lane than the mid lane, although we might see them some in pro play. I think you're not going to see them as much in solo queue anymore after some of the most recent nerfs to them. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. I did want to cover all this. I haven't done mid lane in a few patches. I know everyone's wondering for the preseason. I know it's kind of a longer video, but I really just wanted to go in depth and explain why these picks are going to be really good so you know, can understand when you go out and maybe want to pick one of these up for yourself. I'm likely to make mid lane my secondary role. And the reason for this is it's the least likely that I'm going to get off-rolled as that, but the more that I play it, I realize it kind of suits my playstyle too, where, you know, it can be very macro-oriented, where you can push and then roam and make plays like that, and just making sure you don't die to ganks and stuff like that. So, you know, I kind of like mid lane, particularly Malzahar is someone that I've, you know, enjoyed quite a bit, and I like Cassiopeia too, so a lot of the champs that are really good right now are champions I enjoy. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Don't forget, like and subscribe if you enjoy the content.